Welcome, detectives. Today I'm going to be discussing 5 things we have to look forward to in the Dark Knight's upcoming series. The official synopsis for Batman CAPED Crusader reads, "A thrilling and cinematic reimagining of the Batman mythology, evocative of the character's noir roots." First, let me give you just a few bits of information before I get to my list. Batman CAPED Crusader is one of the most ambitious upcoming projects to be released. It is going to have all-star talent behind the project. Bruce Timm will be leading the way as the executive producer, along with J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves. James Tucker will also be acting as co-producer, and comic great Ed Brubaker is going to be the head writer. It has already been given a 2-season order by Amazon Prime. We don't know the release date yet. It was listed as coming out by the end of 2023, but since it is now November 2023, and we don't even have a trailer, that does not seem to be the case. Now that we're all caught up with the facts, let's get to the list. 1. More Batman, the animated series, than Batman, the animated series. Bruce Timm has said this series kind of goes back to the original principles of the show that they originally came up with in the early 90s. There were certain limitations on what they could do in terms of adult content, in terms of violence and adult themes. Timm's idea is basically to say, okay, it's 1990 again. He gets to do what he wants to do this time, and he's got J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves backing him up. The show will lean heavily on film noir and German expressionist tropes for its look. Timm's also aiming to recreate an authentic world based on the 1940s Batman was originally created in, including the clothes, hairstyles, hats, vehicles, and architecture. 2. Batman is the only superhero in this universe. When this show premieres, there will be no Justice League. In this world, there will not be any other superheroes. When Matt Reeves was giving an interview in 2021, he made this very clear. He said that we'll be watching this lone figure swinging through the cesspool of Gotham. Does that mean there is no Metropolis or Central City? In this show, I think that will be the case. I don't expect to hear any Easter eggs regarding super-powered individuals. If we were to get any other characters outside of Gotham, my guess is they would be very grounded characters such as Green Arrow or The Question. But I am not expecting to see that unless the show goes on for 4 or 5 seasons. I would not be surprised if we never see or hear anything about Superman or Wonder Woman unless it is in the final scene of the series finale. And to be honest, I don't think we need to see those characters or the Justice League. We get a new animated film every month, and that is when we can see different versions of those characters working together. But for this show, I very much want it to just be Batman. No matter how cool it would be to see Superman and Batman team up and have Superman done like the 1940s Fleischer cartoons, I just don't think we'll see any heroes show up besides maybe people like Black Canary or Ted Grant's Wildcat. As for sidekicks, there's been no word on them yet, but I can see a world where maybe way later in the series we see Robin join the series, and apparently Barbara Gordon will be in this show as well. The only thing I think that would prevent Robin from showing up is that in the 90s, the producers of Batman, the animated series, were forced to use Robin in every episode as the show went along. With Timm being in charge, I think he might want to stick clear from having to use those characters that were forced on him 3 decades ago. I love Dick Grayson, and am not against one day seeing him show up in the series and used in a purely support-style way with Batman. But for now, I want to see the show stick with Batman as the lone hero, and to do so for the majority of its run. If you're enjoying this video, please do me a quick favor and hit the like button. It's easy for you, and it helps me and the channel out a lot. 3. Batman will not have his fancy gadgets. Co-producer James Tucker told us that Batman's going to be very low-tech, initially. As he develops as a character, they'll start introducing more gadgets, and the audience can see how he developed the Batmobile using different prototypes. I am very excited for this low-tech take on Batman. As much as I loved the Batman and the Dark Knight trilogy, I just am not a fan of over-the-top gadgets. Batman not even trying to avoid gunfire and getting shot at by machine guns is just not as fun for me. There's no stakes in it at that point. He's not Superman. We shouldn't see bullets bouncing off of his chest. And the vehicles Batman has been using have just been too over the top for me. I don't want to see Batman driving a tank like the Dark Knight trilogy or Arkham Knight. And maybe the worst thing of them all was Ben Affleck's giant spider vehicle in Justice League that he called the Nightcrawler. Robert Pattinson's muscle car as a Batmobile was one of my favorite things about the movie as it makes him more grounded. For CAPED Crusader, I would actually really like to see Batman start out as not even having a Batmobile. In his very first issue, he drove a red coupe, and that would be a neat little Easter egg to have him start out with. I am really looking forward to seeing the Batmobile progress, and hopefully we'll get a very classic, old-school Batmobile that develops as the show continues. As for the other gadgets Batman will use, I am hoping that they never go over the top with them. This show takes place in a timeless 40s world, and I want them to keep the technology relevant to that time period. James Tucker said on the gadgets, "That's part of the fun of this series, is we're finding him discovering these things that, in most other Batman series, they already were there." And I could not agree more. 4. Batman doesn't have any allies. In most Batman-related media, we start out by seeing the Dark Knight is already allied with Jim Gordon. We see he has an uneasy alliance with the police. He has his core people who he can trust and who trust him. Well, that's not going to be the case in this series. James Tucker told us, "We're starting before Batman has earned their trust, and they've earned Batman's trust, so there's nothing assumed. We don't know that Commissioner Gordon will be Batman's ally. Nothing is assumed in this series as far as what we're used to seeing in the world of Batman." So what does that mean exactly for some of his other relationships? I think we're going to see Batman questioning Gordon, and if he is an honest cop, I think the GCPD will not tolerate Batman at all. There won't be any of this Batman walking in and looking over a crime scene with Gordon, and that's something I'm really happy about. I like it when Batman is the outsider with the police, and it makes it more realistic that if the cops see Batman, they're immediately going to try and arrest him. This does make me ask the question of what will Batman's relationship with some of his other allies be like? Will Alfred be a supporting figure, or is he going to constantly try and talk Batman out of this life? Will he even try to sabotage Bruce's mission? What about Lucius Fox? Will he be supplying Batman with weapons, or will he see on the news that Batman is using gadgets that Bruce Wayne had him create and then threaten to turn Bruce in? Will Leslie Tompkins still be that motherly figure to Bruce Wayne and Batman, or will she view Batman as someone who is doing more harm than good to Gotham by attacking and brutally harming poor people who are committing crimes out of what she sees as necessity? These are all questions that we don't know the answer to, but Tucker does say that the journey of the show is to see how Batman and Gordon eventually grow together and learn to trust, or not trust each other. 5. There will be new versions of Batman's villains. In Batman the Animated Series, we got some of the best interpretations of the Batman's rogues gallery ever. Bruce Timm, however, has stated that this show gives them the opportunity to say, okay, the versions of Joker and Catwoman and Penguin, those versions that we did on Batman the Animated Series, were really great and iconic. But there's lots of different ways that we can take those characters that we hope will be just as iconic and just as powerful. This is something that I am really excited to hear, because as amazing as a lot of the villains were on the original show, there is definitely room for improvement for others. I don't feel like we got truly amazing versions of characters like the Riddler, Scarecrow, or Bane. Riddler was not used very often because the creators just could not come up with good enough ideas for the character. Scarecrow's first episode of the animated series actually made him seem pretty goofy and comical, but he did later get a better version in the new Batman Adventure series. And Bane was so completely underused, it was almost criminal. I would very much like to see deeper dives into the backstory of these characters and show what made them into the villains they became. Please do me a quick favor and hit the Batscribe button on the bottom right-hand corner. Once I reach 1,000 subscribers, I can start to become monetized on YouTube, and the sooner that happens, the sooner I can get back to posting new videos every day. I have an idea for a video where I talk about what I would like to see from the villains in this series, so if that is something you want to see, then leave me a comment and let me know. I'd also like to know which villain you think they could do a better job on in this new series, with a commitment to a film noir aesthetic and a departure from the typical superhero ensemble. The series promises a back-to-basics approach, reminiscent of Batman, the animated series. Until then, stay vigilant, for the shadows are about to come alive once again, and the wait for the Caped Crusader's return continues to become even more enticing.